Cool. Well, thanks for everyone joining on short notice here. I just wanted to chat about the recent issue that Michael brought up about allowing the, hello, Michael, about allowing the container scanning analyzer to detect application level vulnerabilities and some of the pros and cons on that. So I think the biggest point of confusion here on the engineering side is about where we want that to show up. And I believe we actually want that to show up on the vulnerability report and in the merge requests. That's really what we're talking about here. And I think, I mean, maybe I'm reading the issue wrong, but I think this issue that we've had open for about 4 months now is really about that. It's about having these show up, on that security and compliance vulnerability report tab. Of course, the challenge in doing that is, the whole reason we are blocking those in the first place is because there's potential duplication with any findings from our dependency scanning job. And so, there's some things that dependency scanning finds that we don't find. There's some things that are duplicative. And so it just gets a little bit, the reason we haven't done this before is just for the user experience is the biggest reason. I know coming back in the history here, I know, Nicole, you basically said, for the MVC, we could probably go ahead and just do this. It might make a bunch of noise, but we could kind of clean it up later. Is that
I added,
thinking?
yeah, that's still the case. I added a note and I can add it into this discussion as well. My preference would be we absolutely enable customers either through a feature flag or a variable to turn this on. I don't want it to be on by default. We could put out a blog post saying, if you're looking for log4j, you can turn this on. But as a result of this being minimal right now, the following things happen. You may end up with duplicate vulnerabilities listed, and you're going to have to deal with that. So if that is worth it to you, please turn on this variable or this feature flag or whatever it is. So that's kind of my thing. I'm 100% okay with customers opting in to be extra noisy. A thing that I am looking at doing soon, and maybe I'll have to do it sooner than later if this goes out, is I don't want to necessarily hardcore dedupe results like we're doing now between our analyzers. I want to do more like aggregation. So DAST right now does where, like, if a vulnerability shows up, they list all the URLs type thing, if y'all have seen that. I want to kind of come up with some kind of similar thing, either, look at how Derek visually displayed that and like have that for customers, like, hey, we found this in these 3 or 4 spots, or maybe just have all 3 of them, but have them linked in some way that you could close them all. But I need a way for customers to easily address the quote unquote noise, which they call false positive, I call noise. Otherwise, they're going to be cranky pants. But if we warn them about that and then they turn it on, that's on them.
Do we know how many people that run DS also run CS or vice versa?
That's a good question. I think we do have
that. I have some charts that I could make 1 or 2 tweaks. Like, I have a chart right now that says which people run what scanners, or by people, I mean namespaces. I could reduce that down to just the 2 and see how much of an overlap there is. There's actually, it seems to be on 2 ends of the spectrum with namespaces, just with the spread of all of them. They either run 1 or they run like a ton. Like, there is not a middle ground in the bell curve.
So can I clarify a few things real quick? Because I think there's some confusion about what's the intended behavior for some of these features. So, so for container scanning, the terms are kind of confusing now because container scanning has dependency scanning in it now. So I'll just call that dependency scanning retrieve. But container scanning itself is not supposed to detect language vulnerabilities. Dependency scanning retrieve is that right? And But the thing is right now, you know, we just developed this like last week or something. And I think right now it only outputs the dependency list, the inventory, right? Not the actual vulnerabilities. It doesn't create vulnerabilities of it.
It does with the flag that Maciej created. It might actually create the vulnerabilities there. Yes.
Okay.
So on at the technical level, just to clarify that if Michael has been looking at the running it manually, exactly. So Von type OS looks at the OS package metadata. So you look at a YUM database or APT or whatever it is that your distribution uses. The other one, list all packages, will look at all the known package metadata. So for Python, you're looking in var lib site, Python site something. Same thing for Ruby. So you can detect some of these libraries and then it'll just do it. But we don't know what installed it there. We just know that it's there.
Now, when this came up before, today I point at a lock file as the blame. Would you be able to point at a container name as a name as a blame?
Yes.
Okay. So at least they could be like somewhere in this container for some reason.
Exactly. And then if you don't know, maybe you should run dependency scanning as part of the build. The problem here is that if I'm using an image that has dependencies pre-installed, I can't run the dependency scanner without building that image myself. So say I do from Python 3, that'll pull that image from Docker Hub, and whatever vulnerabilities are in there that they're installed as Python packages, I can't see them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly my use case.
Yeah, so that location difference though, because Tiago, location is part of our fingerprint, right? And so, you know, what you're asking for, Nicole, it sounds like, you know, here's an example of DAST aggregating, you know, this one vulnerability was found in all of these different URLs. The challenge for us in doing that with container scanning is that now we have two different states for the location. So it's not enough to just categorize those as the same scanner. It gets a bit tricky because we've got, you know, potentially multiple locations and multiple scanners that have found this same vulnerability. So that gives us the unfortunate choice. And again, you know, Michael, this is why we haven't done this before, is because now, you know, suppose someone goes through and says, you know, this particular vulnerability is not applicable. We don't use that area of code. Now they have to go in, they're going to have that vulnerability listed twice in their vulnerability report, and they have to go manage that twice. So it's potentially creates a lot of duplicate effort for the person who has to go through all of these vulnerabilities. And I agree, ideally, we'd be able to just consolidate those down into one and say this was found by both dependency scanning and container scanning. And we would just list out multiple locations here.
Yeah, and at least like either have an option like close both. For example, if we didn't want to hard combine them, but we wanted to do some kind of linking or aggregation, we could say like close both of them, like take this action against both.
That discussion, Nicole.
Yeah.
Aggregation versus grouping versus duplicating.
And like there's a million different ways to slice it. So, and that's because we haven't settled that conversation is why we haven't really dug into this one. So I think, like I said, if we're introducing this or pushing this out now, as long as people have to turn on some kind of variable or something, and we say, here's exactly what's going to happen to you, and you may have to close things twice. If you're okay with that, go on with your bad self. But the, you know, we've documented.
Which people will promptly ignore and then proceed to ask us, why is it not working? But
and then I get to point at the docs. As long as I can point at the docs, I don't feel bad for just ignoring people.
So Sam, the what you're talking about, the location is spot on. Just in case, Michael, you probably know that, but there are four criteria to deduplicate. So it's the project ID, the report type, the location. There's a fourth one, the primary identifier, right? So out of the four, we have three that will probably match depending on the advisory database. So the project will match, the report type won't match. Sorry, I lied, it's two. The report type won't match because one might be dependency scan, the other might be container scanning. That's kind of easy to fix, maybe. But it's within our power to fix. We could put these in the container scanning report. Then there's the location. That's the complicated one. Threatening sites will not be in a good position to support that sort of tracking. I want to say after February, March, probably. In February, SAST is collaborating with threatening sites to do some work around that area. But it's very early days. I don't know what's going to happen there. But it's the sort of thing that would enable us to go, hey, this is actually the same as that. Can we just make them somehow show this as the same or as grouped or something?
Yeah, and at that point, once we have that kind of grouping or whatever we decide to do with it, once we have a better solution there, that might be a good point to turn that feature flag on by default. But so yeah, for now, I think the main issue at hand is, as I understand it, it's really just giving customers the option to remove this flag right here, the vuln type OS flag, but we would default to leaving this flag in place unless they explicitly wanted to remove it. And I think that's all we need to do for this immediate iteration.
And then I think we need two doc updates. One doc update says we will not detect things that are part of the base. You have to run it on image build if you want to find those.
Mm-hmm.
And then second is, if you turn this on, you potentially will get duplicate results and have more results in your, pile of things to triage, because we have not gotten to some kind of cleaner way of grouping these or bulk actioning these for you. And by choosing to turn this on, you acknowledge like you're about to get more. So, but I think that first one is pretty clutch, where like you have to, depending how you're using your container, you have to build your container if you want to detect everything.
So there is two different things. Number one, container scanning is restricted to one type OS. Adding a variable to configure that would be an enhancement. Number two is the dependency scanning does not output the language packages right now. That is a bug, and that is because of how we are parsing the report format. So there's two separate.
Do I have that one scheduled for 14.7 already?
We don't even have an issue for it right now.
Okay, so if we make one, I can schedule that for 14.7 and bump out one of my other bugs to handle that.
Is that just the fix that's the fix that you detailed there in your comment, right, Brian, as it relates to the dependency list?
Yeah, my comment is about the dependency list. We do need to double check and make sure that that the report format for the language specific packages is in the format that we expect, because I did notice that some of the fields are different for Java packages, which is kind of odd. But yeah, we need to make sure that we always have data with all the different languages, because it looks like it doesn't always output the same fields.
So, Brian, thank you for that comment explaining the changes that we need to make on the dependency list converter. Are we looking to pull that into the current milestone, Sam? So we can offer this as a optional solution?
That's a good question.
Let me paste the the
What
link
would
in
we
the
be
chat.
leaving out if we did prioritize this in 14.6? That's probably the first thing I should ask.
Yeah, good question. So maybe we can take that asynchronously. The answer is depends on what gets bumped. But otherwise, that would be the intention.
I'm inclined to say yes, we should pull this in, especially if we do need it for marketing, just because, you know, the log4j vulnerability is all over the internet right now. And so
All the account managers are going to be asked about it. So if I can also bump something to help out, I'm willing to bump like a couple of my bugs that will, I already had to bump so much stuff. So everyone's already angry at me.
So here's what's left in ready for development and refinement for backend, Sam. So this is an improvement.
mhm.
This is a metrics thing. I don't think it's been broken for a while. Don't know if it's huge to fix
Do
it now.
metrics ever work?
I
They
would
did.
say-
They did.
So based on this, I would slot it between number 1 and number 2 on this list.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And the third one can wait. It's a database. We need to drop an index that we added temporarily.
Yeah.
We don't have heaps for left on this milestone anyway. So whatever's in here is likely to overflow to the next milestone anyway. Cool. Thank you.
Add it into your list right now so that we can prioritize that.
Yeah, and if there's that display bug on the dependency list, if we can get that written up, I'll swap one of my existing bugs out for it, and we'll take care of the display.
Can you explain that somewhere, Brian, please? So Nicole can have a look.
Yeah, you know what? I'll create a new issue for it. Because I think it ought to be documented in an issue. So I'll do that. And but it's a problem on the container scanning side. So there's nothing wrong with Rails dependency reports.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it's not the processing or the Grafana or anything I can tweak.
It's the report conversion. So when converting the output from Trivy to GitLab security report, that's where the issue is happening.
Yeah, I think this would be an item for our team to pick up. I mean, you're certainly welcome to help out, Nicole, but I think this would all be in our code base. But if you're volunteering a developer, we'll take it probably.
I think I'm at 50% for next time. I will try and slim down my stuff. Feel free to ask people for help with like testing things or poking things or reviews if that would be helpful to y'all. I will warn them just because I know log4j is going to be, everyone's going to be asking about it. And if we have time at the end of this, I actually have a question about workspaces, if y'all have started that work or not yet, because sort of related.
I know the answer to this one. So
Okay.
for the workspace stuff, we're blocked right now because the workspaces team is still trying to complete what they call namespaces. So they're creating like a container that can have a workspace or a group or a project, and that's not done yet.
Okay.
And so that's like the scaffolding that
Yep.
the workspace features will go into, and it's not complete yet. So
Okay.
we're waiting for them to finish that.
Yeah, if anybody notices when we're unblocked on that, because I can tell you the next thing that it's going to come up from account managers, and it's already come up frequently. Can I tell which of my projects are impacted by X? And to solve that, what I have wanted to do with the dependency list page, which is currently at the project level, is move that into the workspaces, whatever, I don't know, code chunk, and then be able to allow people to have groups. And so they could search by group, not just by project, which would then answer their question, but I can't until that's done, so.
Yep, we're in the same boat for security policies. I think they're supposed to be done in 14.7. We're starting. I'm not really sure if it's like ready for us to start work in 14.7 or if they're finishing it and shipping it in 14.7, but either way.
I would say they're probably working at 14.7, so hopefully 14.8 we can check if we're unblocked.
But we are, yep, we're waiting on that too. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks for logging that issue, Brian. Go ahead and put that in 14.6 as well. Once you do log that other display issue, I think in Tiago's list of issues, we'll put that as number 3 in the list. And we'll see if we can get it done in this milestone. And if not, we'll ship early next milestone.
Thanks. And if I can help with testing, I would also love to help out if needed. For the blog post, this will be like pushed out today, but we can always update it later on, like keeping it as the single source of truth.
Thank you, Michael. We'll definitely want your help for testing. Yes, please.
Okay.
And Maciej, I hope your baby we didn't wake up your baby with all our log4j noise.
Like he's literally like 10 centimeters from me, so they're really close. So I need to stay quiet. That's why I was always like just using my hat to confirm. Brian has all the answers. That's what's needed.
Excellent. It worked out. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for booking this, Sam. Anything else? No?
No, that's it. Thank you.
See ya.
All right.